Hi everybody, I'm Rosemary and welcome to part 4 of my 12 Styles of Christmas series. This is an extra special video because not only will we be continuing with the giveaways, but it's also a collaboration with my sweet friend and amazing crafter, Holly from Hot Humble Pie. Holly and I thought it would be fun to come up with some Christmas DIYs using items typically in stock at the Dollar Tree and also widely available elsewhere. We each decided to pick 2 items, and so Holly's 2 picks were stovetop covers and foil pans, and my 2 items were party hats and twine. We have no idea what each other are doing, so I am super excited to head over to Holly's channel to check out what awesomeness she has come up with. And believe me, you will want to too. So I'll go ahead and leave a link, but right now let's jump into this video. For my first DIY, I'm going to use Holly's pick of the stovetop covers. I'm also going to be using this old sweater. Now the sleeves have already been used for pumpkin sweaters, but I'm going to go ahead and just use the front and back of the sweater for this project. Then I'm going to take a little Holly tip and use some masking tape to create a surface for me to glue onto the back of the stovetop cover. And so I'll just start with the top there. I am making sure that that pattern of the sweater is lined up, kind of up and down, and I'll just kind of attach the top and the bottom, and then I'm going to continue to glue the other pieces of the sweater around, but I'm going to be pleating it as I go. So I'm just creating little pleats and then hot gluing it down into place. And then I'll do that all the way around, and this will ensure that I get a nice, smooth, gap-free front. Next, I took another piece of that sweater material and this smaller burner cover, and this time I was able to get the material all the way around. But in order to fill that gap with the larger burner cover, I just went back with a small cutout of the material and glued it in place. Since I wanted to make this a standing snowman, I took a large painter stick and added some multi-purpose quick and thick glue as well as some hot glue, and then just attached the paint stick to the back of my sweater covered burner covers. And then I put some books on top to weight it down. To decorate my snowman, I took some stickers, buttons, and these little mirror rounds from the Dollar Tree and painted those black. Then I just wanted to secure my snowman to the stick a little better, so I went back with my hot glue gun and just filled in any gaps. Whoops, I forgot his nose, so I just took a craft stick and cut out a kind of a carrot shape, or a kind of a wonky carrot shape, and then I just went ahead and painted that orange. To decorate my snowman, I used those little mirror rounds that I had painted black for his eyes, and then the buttons I used for the buttons, and then for his mouth I used the stickers that I had painted black, and then I did use a little extra glue to make sure they stayed on. Now for the snowman's scarf and hat, I wanted to use this plaid skirt that I actually purchased at a yard sale last year. I loved it because it had this wonderful tassel fringe, and I did use this in a DIY last year, this sweater hoop with plaid trees. And guess what? This is the next DIY up for giveaway, and I'll give you the details on that coming up in a few minutes. But for now, let's finish up this DIY. So I wanted to cut a piece of that fringy bottom, and all I did with this to make the scarf was to add some tacky glue there and just fold it over just to kind of get a good seam there and not have any frayed ends. To make the hat, I took a 12-inch by 9-inch piece of the material, and then I wanted to create like a little cuff on the front, so I just folded it and then flipped it over, and then along the back side I added some hot glue and just glued down that frayed end. Then I flipped it back to the front and just glued down the cuff part so that that would stay in place. And then I attached it directly to my snowman. I just took the hat, a piece of material, wrapped it around, hot glued one side, then hot glued the other side, and then flipped it back over, gave it a little bit more glue underneath so that it would hold in place. And then once that was set, I kind of bunched up that top part and took a pipe cleaner and just wrapped the top with that. And then I just took my scarf and wrapped it around. And don't mind my phone there in the frame. I was actually waiting for Holly to call. We had been missing each other for days, and so I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss the call, and I forgot to take it out of the frame. But the next step was that I actually took a brick. I have lots of bricks. But if you don't, no worries. You can pick up bricks at Lowe's or Home Depot for about 37 cents, and they make great stands because they're nice and heavy and those paint sticks fit right in the holes. And then here is the finished project, a cute little standing snowman made with Dollar Tree stovetop covers and some material scraps. For the next DIY, I'm switching over to one of my picks, which was some Dollar Tree twine. Now I put the twine into this Parmesan cheese container, and I had this idea to put it through this lid. You'll see that did not work out too well. But the next step was that I added some glue, just regular school glue, to the twine, and I just kind of mashed it all around to make sure that the twine was nice and wet with the glue. Next, I took a star-shaped balloon that I purchased from the Dollar Tree and began wrapping it with the glue-soaked twine. Now, there was no rhyme or reason to this at first. I was just trying to get the twine onto the balloon. So I was just wrapping it kind of all different ways, haphazardly, just wrapping it around. I'm not going to lie, it was a hot mess. But here it is after 2 of the little bundles of twine were applied. And I noticed that some of the details, like the points, were not kind of wrapped. So I did go back on my third little spool of twine that comes in the 3-pack and make sure that all of the corners and all the points were all wrapped with the twine. So, I just suggest to do that. The other thing I would suggest is definitely buy a Christmas color, because as you'll see, I was originally going to buy an orange one because they had them readily available. And I said, no, it'll look better on the video. Well, good thing I did, because I did have some trouble. Now, I don't know if it was because I let it stay too long. I actually took a couple days before I removed the balloon, but it did leave a lot of the red balloon, which I will show you how I had to go back and kind of file it off, actually. But it looked not that bad because it was a nice Christmas red, and so if you do get a lot of the balloon left on the twine, it kind of shimmers red, so it's okay. So definitely, if you're going to do this project, pick a Christmas color if you're doing this for Christmas. Now here it is after I did attach all 3 of the twine spools that come in the package, and it is, this is actually a couple of days because I kind of forgot, I was doing other things and I didn't get back to it. It might be why I had the problem with the removal of the balloon, but it was probably good in about 6 or 7 hours, was probably ready to have the balloon removed. But this is probably 2 days later, so it's about 48 hours later. And so it comes off pretty easy in terms of it, just kind of removing itself from, the balloon removes itself from the twine. And then I was able to kind of go in there on the end and just pull out all of the rest of the balloon. But you'll see there where it left a lot of the red attached. It was removing the foil. And again, I don't know if that was because I let it sit too long, but I don't think you'd have this problem if you didn't have a foil balloon. But with a foil balloon, this seems to be a challenge. But it was fine. I just went back with this little nail file and just kind of poked everything out, and then actually just kind of filed it down a little bit, and then that would remove the red. And then I got to a certain point and I just said, you know what, it looks okay with little pieces of red here and there, of course, because this is Christmas. And then here is the finished project. I just added a little greenery and a plaid bow, and you can see where there are little pieces of the red left over, but I think it just adds to the effect. And now for the winner of our first 12 Styles of Christmas series giveaway, this 3-piece buffalo check gift set. And the winner is Maureen Manning. Congratulations, Maureen, and thanks to everyone who entered, and details coming up for the plaid tree sweater hoop. For the next DIY, I'm going to use these party hats, and I'm going to just take them apart, and then I'll remove that little elastic band, and then I'm going to flatten them out, and you'll see that on the right-hand side, there's kind of a little tab where it would tuck in. I'm going to cut that off, and then I'm going to take a ruler, and on that right-hand corner, I'm going to measure in 1 inch and mark it there. And then I'm going to flip the party hat back around to the outside so that the inside is now outside. And then I'll line that edge up with the line that I marked, and then go ahead and put it back together using some hot glue. Then I'm going to repeat the process for 5 more of the hats, but each time I'm going to measure in 1 more inch. So again, I'm going to flatten it out, cut off that little tab, and this time I'll measure in 2 inches. And then again, just flip it around and hot glue it into place where I measured that mark. Now, because it does get a little confusing once you make all these little new hats, I needed to go back and start marking them at the 1, the 2, to tell me which one it was. It'll be important later on. And then again, I'm going to just now go to a 3 and just do the same thing. Again, 4, 5, and 6 will be the other ones. And then they do get smaller and smaller. This last one is a little hard to get wrapped around, but once you get it there, just go ahead and glue it in place. Next, I just took some paper towel and toilet paper rolls. Now, if you're using paper towel, you'll need about 5 paper towels and about 10 of the toilet paper rolls. And what I'm going to do is just do a dry brush of an ivory color first. And I'm going to do that. I'm going to cut open the paper towel roll and just do a dry brush of ivory on all of my paper towel rolls, and then go back and do a dry brush of the ivory on all of my little hats. Then once that's done, I'm going to go back with some brown paint and do a dry brush of the brown paint on top of the ivory paint. Of course, after the ivory paint has had a chance to dry. And then this is what they should look like when you're done. Next, what I want to do with the little paper towel rolls is fold them back in half, and then I'm going to mark off 1-inch sections, and then I'm going to cut those 1-inch sections. Then each of those 1-inch sections I'm going to cut into a leaf shape. So once I cut this section, since they was folded in half, I'm going to get 2 little leaves. And then I'll do that for all of my paper towel rolls. Next, I'm going to take my largest hat, or my number 1 hat, and I'm going to attach the leaves to the bottom. I'm going to just use some hot glue to do that. I'm pretty much going in the middle of the leaf, is kind of lined up with the edge of the hat, and I'm kind of, folding or curling those leaves around a little bit. And I'll just go along the whole bottom of the hat, hot gluing these leaves on. And then once I've completed that first row, I'm going to go back and do a second row, and I'm going to put those leaves in between the first row of leaves. So you can see there where I'm attaching it, it's kind of right in between. I'll put the glue there right in between the bottom level of leaves, and then that's where I attach the second row. Will go right between the leaves on the first row. And then you can see there is a little overlapping, which is fine. Either overlapping or you can cut them down, whichever you prefer. And then once I've gotten 2 rows onto hat number 1, I'm going to move on to hat number 2 and also give that hat 2 rows of the leaves in the exact same way. As a matter of fact, I'm going to do the same thing for hats 3, 4, 5, and when I get to 6, that hat I will do the leaves all the way up to the top. Now, once you do get to hat 6, you are going to probably need to cut down the leaves a little bit because it does taper in really small, and so trimming those leaves a little bit will probably be required. And then all you need to do is stack them, starting with number 1 on the base, and then come right up from there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6 will go on top. And then here is the finished project. You can leave as is for a great woody look, but I went ahead and added a little greenery and berries to the top. For the next DIY, I'm going to be using 3 of these half-gallon cartons, and 2 of those I'm going to be cutting down. Now, I did indicate there at 4 inches. I'm actually going to cut those a little smaller, but we'll look at that in a second. First, let's take a look at this first milk carton. I'm going to remove the little spout. I'm going to hold that aside because I am going to be using that. And then I'm going to cut down on all 4 sides there were on the edges, and I'm just cutting down to that top seam. Then I'm going to fold the edges in and just hot glue those in place, creating a nice little rectangular shape for my milk carton. Now, once I cut this to 4 inches, I realized it was way too tall, and 3 inches was the better measurement. So I went back and did cut those down to 3 inches. And now, since I do want to glue to the sides of the cartons, I did want to sand down the sides just to remove that waxy coating. Next, I took all 3 cartons, as well as this can of tomato sauce, and painted them all with some black spray paint. While the paint was drying, I took some craft sticks and I cut them into 3.5-inch pieces. Then I took my painted cartons and began gluing the cut sticks to the side using some hot glue. Before adding my wood panels to my larger rectangle, I realized that I needed to add these jumbo sticks to the bottom. These are jumbo craft sticks. I got these at Walmart. And so I just went ahead and with a combination of E6000 and hot glue, I just attached these to the bottom of my large carton. And then I also added some of the smaller craft sticks to the bottom side for extra support. And then I painted all these new additions with some black paint. While that paint was drying, I went ahead and took my can that I had spray painted earlier, and now I'm going to just add some wood paneling to that with these popsicle sticks that I purchased from Dollar Tree. And so I'm going to just hot glue these sticks all the way around the outside of my can. And then when I got to the bottom, there was one that didn't fit, but that's okay because it's going to go on the bottom when I glue it down. Now, one of the things that I didn't realize when I was first doing this was that I didn't want to put wood all the way around. I thought I was going to do that at first, which is why I sanded everything down. But then I realized that I wanted to keep some with black paint. And so I had to go back and just paint those with some chalk paint because they were all scratched up from where I thought I was going to be gluing wood. But what I'm doing here now is back to the large rectangle. And I'm again using those 3.5-inch pieces to do the sides. And now I'm going back with some 5-inch pieces and gluing those to the top for the roof. And then to add a little trim, I took these wood dowels from the Dollar Tree and just cut them down to size, sanded off the edges a little bit, and then glued them into place. And I did that all the way around the top and then along the two sides. Then in order to give the wood a little stain, I just diluted this caramel colored craft paint and just brushed that over all of my wood pieces. Next, I went back to my little box cars because I needed to do a little platform on the bottom. So I took a couple of Jenga blocks and hot glued them to the bottom of each of my box cars. Then I came up to my cabin and glued 2 Jenga blocks under that, and then another 2 Jenga blocks went underneath of the engine. For the train wheels, I'm going to use these tires from this little car as well as this motorcycle. Now I got both of these at the Dollar Tree. I did need 3 of the cars and just 1 of the motorcycles. And I popped the tires off the little car and I'm going to attach those with some hot glue and some E6000. Now I'm going to attach them to the sides of the carton, and if you notice, it is the bottom of the tire is above where that little platform is, those little Jenga blocks down below, because the train is actually going to sit on the little Jenga blocks, and the wheels are more for decoration because they really can't hold the weight with the depending on what you put in it. So anyway, I thought that's why I would do the little platforms, and then I wouldn't have to worry about all the tires being different sizes and that type of thing. So I could just put these bigger tires here up higher, and it wouldn't make it all lopsided. And if you don't glue them right, they're going to sit lopsided. So this way, the Jenga blocks are going to be a certain height, and you can just leave those as a platform and just glue the tires more in a decorative way to the sides of your cartons. Now, I did have a little bit of a design flaw here. When I went to attach the front tires, there's nothing to glue them to. So Jenga blocks to the rescue again. I'm going to take those and paint those black. Now, while I'm going to do that, I figured let me get this smokestack also painted black. And so I just took some of those craft stick ends and then that little from the milk carton spout, which I glued on top. And then I just took them all and painted them all black. And then here are the Jenga blocks after I had painted them black and attached them to the side of my little engine compartment there. And now you see I have something to glue my wheels onto. And then here are cartons and popsicle sticks looking more and more like a train. I did wanted to show you what it looks like at this stage with the little engine part put on the front, because now here it is like all wood, and I kind of like it with the wood, and just wanted to show you what the options are before I go ahead and add our feature piece, because you must have been saying, where's the feature piece? I see no foil pans. Where did they go? So this is the time that I'm going to actually use the feature piece, and I'm going to take this foil pan from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to distress these pans with both some gray paint at first, and then also add some black paint into that, and then also some burnt umber is going to go around the edges of the cut pieces. And I'm just using a piece of a plastic shopping bag as the applicator. So first I did the gray coat, and now I'm doing the black, and I'm just kind of pouncing it on. I'm just using a very little bit of black, not much, but it just gives a great distressed, aged look to the metal. And then what I want to do is cut out the individual pieces. Now this piece is going to be wrapped around the engine barrel there. And before I put it onto the wood, I do want to just give it a little bit of burnt umber around the edges. I also cut out some 2 by 3 inch pieces of the metal, and again doing some of that burnt umber there around the edges, and these are going to be for the windows on my cabin. To attach the metal, I use some hot glue on the edge, and then I put some E6000 in the middle, wrap the metal around, and then I'm going to use some hot glue there again at the edge. Then I'll attach the entire barrel to the platform using some E6000 glue. Now make sure, of course, that you put it in the right direction, because you want that little spiral part or little circular part to be at the front. And then here it is with the little windows all attached in the front, the back, and on both sides. And then the last step for this engine is to put the smokestack on. And so I'm just going to go ahead and glue that right in place, again with some hot glue and E6000. I also cut out some metal pieces for the sides of the box cars, and then to link all the trains together, I'll be using these chains that I have left over from a planter project this summer that just came from the hanging Dollar Tree planters. And oh my goodness, how cute this little train is with its little cargo cars that can hold little gifts or candies or just some Christmas greens like I show here. It would also make a great family project that you can do with the kids or grandkids. And if you would like to enter the giveaway for the plaid tree sweater hoop, here's what you need to do. First, leave me a comment letting me know which DIY in this video was your favorite, and 2, add the hashtag plaid tree. And don't forget to head on over to Holly's channel to check out the DIYs she made with the everyday items that we selected. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give a big thumbs up. And if you'd like to check out some more great DIYs, you can click on one of these videos. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.